attempt to resign and said he hoped to name a new prime minister soon. After Prime Minister Michael Berners was ousted by lawmakers in a non-confidence vote, the president resisted calls for him to stand down, seeking instead to shift blaming to the left-wing and far-right factions. In this address to the nation, the French head of state had harsh words for the far-right national rally whose leader Marine Le Pen has orchestrated opposition against him and has vowed to frustrate his agenda. Macron is halfway through his second and final term as president, but the results of the snap elections he called in June have severely complicated the final stage of his time in power.
Nobody can afford to wait to act, to be useful. The world and Europe are moving forward, and we need a government that can make decisions. And finally, the mandate that you have democratically entrusted to me is for 5 years, and I will exercise it to the full. My responsibility is to ensure the continuity of the state, the proper functioning of our institutions, the independence of our country, and the protection of all of you. We can't afford to be divided, and we can't afford to stand still. This is why I will be appointing a prime minister in the next few days. I will give him the task of forming a government in the common interest, representing all the political forces of an arc of government that can participate in it or at the very least undertake not to censure it. The prime minister will have to carry out his consultations and form a tight government at your service. His priority will be the budget. A special law will have to be tabled in Parliament before mid-December. This temporary law will ensure the continuity of public services and the life of the country, as provided for in our Constitution. It will apply for 2025 the choices made in 2024.
Mexico's President Claudia Sheinbaum assured that the necessary precautions are being taken in case of new wave of deportation from the U.S.
We are working on it. We will inform you. I repeat, there is a part that has to do with the consulates. Another part has to do with the work we will have to do in Mexico. We hope this does not happen, but if it does, we must be prepared to welcome them. There is a current agreement with the administration of President Biden, where for many of the nationalities, they send them directly by air to their countries of origin. Where they do not have a direct relationship, there is also an agreement for them to contribute from Mexico to send people to their countries of origin.
Likewise, the Mexican head of state announced the meeting of the National Security Council, which is constituted by several members of our cabinet.
Vamos a tener el Consejo Nacional de Seguridad. Ese consejo se tiene que hacer por ley.
We are going to hold the National Security Council. This council has to be held by law. So there will be a previous meeting with the coordinator of the council, the Secretary of Security and the Secretary of Government regarding next year's resources that are going to be distributed from the different funds that are allocated for security, both to the states and to the municipalities. And later we are going to have the meeting, which has a protocol aspect, and at the same time we are going to explain once again the strengthening of the security strategy we are implementing and how it is necessary to coordinate with all the governors.
The Israeli regime continues its attacks on hospitals in the northern Gaza Strip, specifically in the Halabja area as well as the Mid-Lay area. From the Gaza Strip, our correspondent Huda Hegazi has more details.
En esta jornada, el régimen de Israel ha vuelto a atacar nuevamente a los hospitales en la zona norte de la Franja de Gaza, concretamente.
Today, the Israeli regime has once again attacked hospitals in the northern Gaza Strip, specifically in the Jabalia camp area, as well as in the Beit Lahia area. First of all, it is worth mentioning the sixth consecutive attack on Kamal Adwan Hospital, the only remaining active hospital in the area, where at 6 o'clock in the evening, local time in the Gaza Strip, the army bombarded the hospital with missiles and shrapnel bombs, causing not only damage to the buildings, but also
también
causing injury
provocando
to
la
the
lesión
patients,
de al
but also
menos 12
causing the injury of
personas,
at
varios
least
de
12
ellos incluso
people,
eran
several of them
personal
even
del
medical
equipo
staff,
médico,
as well as
así
the death of two
como la
azatis,
muerte
one of them a
de dos
16-year-old
azatíes.
minor
Uno
who
de
was
ellos
just
era
in the
un
emergency
menor de
section,
16
in a
años que se
wheelchair who
encontraba
had come for
justamente
medical
en la
assistance.
sección de emergencias en una silla de ruedas que había venido para recibir asistencia médica, pero que debido a ese bombardeo perdió la vida. Y la segunda víctima de ese ataque fue un hombre de aproximadamente
The
34
second
años de edad
victim of
que se
this attack
encontraba
was a man of
justamente
about
en la
34
puerta
years
de
of
ese
age who was
hospital.
just
Y
outside the
por lo
door of the
tanto, en el día
hospital,
de
and
hoy,
therefore
y
today,
debido a los
due to the
repetidos
repeated
ataques
attacks on this
hacia ese
medical
centro
center, the
médico,
director
el
of Kamal
director
Adwan
del hospital
Hospital,
Kamal Adwan,
Dr. Hassam
el doctor
Abasafia,
Hossam
has
Abu
condemned
Safia,
these
ha
repeated
condenado
attacks on the
estos
medical
ataques
facility,
repetidos
and
y
has even
reiterados
stressed that
hacia
the
ese
Israeli
centro
army
médico,
already has as
y
a
ha
routine and
incluso
normal act to
mostrado
bomb these
ese
hospitals, and especially
mensaje
due to the
de que el
silence of the
ejército de
international
Israel ya tiene
community,
como
as
acto
well as the
rutinario y
silence
normal
of the World
bombardear
Health
estos
Organization.
hospitales, y sobre todo debido a el silencio de la comunidad internacional, así como el silencio de la Organización Mundial de la Salud. Y por lo tanto el doctor Hossam ha pedido el rápido
And
movimiento
therefore,
de las
Dr.
organizaciones
Hassam has called for
internacionales
the
para
quick movement
poner
of the
fin a
international
el ataque
organizations to
hacia
put
ese
an end to
centro
the
médico en
attack towards
concreto.
this particular
Sin
medical
embargo, el
center.
hospital de Kamal Adwan
However,
no ha
the
sido
Kamal
el único
Adwan
hospital que
Hospital
ha
was
sido
not the
atacado,
only
sino que
hospital to
también
be
el hospital
attacked, but also
indonesio,
the
que
Indonesian
se encuentra en la
hospital in the
zona
northern
norte de la
Gaza
Franja de
Strip was
Gaza,
also
también
bombed by the
ha
Israeli
recibido
army,
un
causing a
bombardeo
large
por parte
fire
del
on the
ejército
third
de
floor of
Israel,
the building and the
causando
injury
un
of
grave
about
incendio,
3
sobre
people who were
todo en la
inside the
tercera
hospital.
planta de ese edificio, y la lesión de aproximadamente 3 gazatíes que se encontraban en el interior de ese hospital. También decir, y en relación al sistema sanitario de la Franja de Gaza, también
Also, in
destacar
relation to the
el
health system in
comunicado
the
que ha
Gaza
sido
Strip, I would
emitido
like to
por el
highlight the
hospital de
statement
Mártires
issued
de
by the
Al-Aqsa,
Al-Aqsa
concretamente
Martyrs
ese
Hospital,
hospital donde me
specifically the
encuentro ahora
hospital
mismo,
where I am right
en donde
now,
el
where the
directivo de este
director of this
centro
medical
médico
center has
ha
warned and sent a
avisado y
message
mandado
especially to the
un
World Health
mensaje sobre todo
Organization,
a las organizaciones
informing them of the
mundiales de la
difficult
salud,
situation that the
informando de la
chronically ill
difícil
children are
situación
going
que están
through.
atravesando los menores que tienen enfermedades crónicas. El director ha asegurado que los menores con enfermedades crónicas lamentablemente no tienen acceso a tratamiento,
The
varios
director
de ellos
assured that
incluso
children with chronic
presentan
diseases
síntomas muy
unfortunately do
graves y que
not have access to
lamentablemente
treatment.
podrían
Several of
perder
them
la vida
even
en
have very
cualquier
serious
momento.
symptoms and
También
could
ha
unfortunately
asegurado
lose
que
their lives at any
aproximadamente el
moment.
80% de
He
los
has
niños de la
also
Franja
assured
de
that
Gaza
approximately
muestran
80% of the
síntomas
children in
de
the Gaza Strip
malnutrición
show
debido
symptoms of
a la falta
malnutrition
de
due to lack of
alimentos,
quality
debido a
food,
la
and therefore
falta
this
de
hospital
comida de
has sent a
calidad, y por
message
lo
that the
tanto
situation
este
of the
hospital
children in the Gaza
ha enviado
Strip,
un mensaje de que
especially
la
the
situación
chronically
de
ill
los menores de la
minors,
Franja de
is
Gaza,
very
sobre todo
serious.
los menores con enfermedades crónicas, es muy grave. También destacar de que en el día de hoy los cuerpos de defensa civil, así
Also,
como los
it's important
cuerpos
to
de
note that today
bomberos,
the civil
han
defense and
enviado
fire
otro
departments have sent
comunicado
another
asegurando que
communique stating that
aproximadamente
approximately
13
13
coches
fire
de
engines
bomberos
are
se
currently out
encuentran
of
en este
service due
momento
to
fuera
lack
de
of fuel.
servicio debido a la
This
falta
has
de
come in light of
combustible.
the restrictions
Esto ha
imposed by the
venido a la
occupation
luz de las
army to prevent
restricciones
the entry
impuestas
of
por el
fuel,
ejército de
to
la
prevent
ocupación
even the
de
entry of any
impedir la
basic
entrada de
necessities,
combustible,
whether it is
impedir
food,
incluso
whether
la
it is
entrada de cualquier
humanitarian
necesidad
aid, whether it
básica,
is
ya sea
medical supplies.
alimentos, ya sea ayuda humanitaria, ya sea suministros médicos. Y por lo tanto en este momento estamos hablando de que 13 coches de ambulancia que se encuentran en el centro y sur de la Franja de Gaza han dejado de funcionar,
And
y
therefore, at
esto
this
puede
moment, we are talking
repercutir
about
de una
13
manera
ambulance
bastante
cars that are in the
negativa, sobre
center and
todo
south of the
al
Gaza
aumentar
Strip,
estos
which have
ataques
stopped working,
hacia
and this may
estas zonas
impact
de
in
la
quite a
Franja de
negative
Gaza,
way,
y eso
especially by
conllevaría a
increasing
que
these
en cualquier
attacks to these
ataque,
areas of the Gaza
si se
Strip,
produce
and
un
that would mean
incendio,
that
no
in
se
any
podría
attack, if there
parar
is a
ese
fire,
incendio, y
it would not
tampoco
be
se
possible to
podría
stop it, nor
ayudar a
anyone could
trasladar a las
help to
víctimas de
transfer
los
the
heridos, y
victims
por lo
and the
tanto
wounded,
este
and
paro
therefore the
de
stoppage of
los
fire
coches de
engines is quite
bomberos
directly harmful to
perjudica
the Gazans, and
bastantemente
the message that we
directamente
wanted
hacia
to
los
send,
gazatíes.
especially
Y
today, is that
lo
the
que el
Israeli
mensaje que
regime
se ha
must
querido
reopen the
enviar sobre
borders
todo
with
en
the
el día
Gaza
de hoy
Strip to
es
at
que
least
el
allow the
ejército de
entry of
Israel
these
debe
basic
de reabrir
necessities.
nuevamente las fronteras con la Franja de Gaza para al menos permitir la entrada de estas necesidades básicas.
And demonstrations continue for 8 consecutive days in Georgia, a serious political crisis and hundreds of arrests. According to the local media, the protesters, mostly right-wing sympathizers, gather in front of the country's parliament and confront the police, leaving at least 150 officers and thousands of journalists wounded. Despite the unrest, the elected president of the Georgian Dream Party, the Iraq leader Karywashvili, declared that the state institutions continue to function properly. On On the other hand, Prime Minister Irakli Koidise accused outgoing President Salam of calling the violent protests a call he described as fascist. In the U.S., the government announced that it is preparing additional sanctions for those authorities who seek to suppress the demonstrations in Tbilisi and other cities in Georgia. In a statement, the Secretary of State Antony Blinken said that Washington is prepared to retaliate against those who suppress the right of Georgian citizens to free speech. In this regard, Washington called on Georgia's ruling party to mitigate any repressive tactics, including the use of arbitrary arrest and physical violence, in an attempt to silence its detractors. In Peru, the new Jorge Chávez International Airport will begin operations on January the 29th, 2025. More than 13,000 workers are currently working to complete airport infrastructure. The new single-passenger terminal, which is 98% complete, is distinguished by its modern technology, which promises to provide travelers with an advanced and safe experience. A few weeks before the inauguration of the new Jorge Chávez International Airport, which is in its final phase of construction, it looks totally modernized and in accordance with the passenger demands. This expansion of the Airport City project is intended to promote economic development and real estate growth in the surrounding areas.
We aim to handle 30 million passengers annually, and next year, we will focus on further improvements to reach 40 million. This includes the rehabilitation of the existing runway, as well as upgrades to the old runway. Our goal is to ensure we can operate both runways simultaneously, supported by the new terminal and control tower. The airport design is inspired by the Nazca culture. From above, it takes the shape of a hummingbird, a symbol of the Nazca civilization, while the commercial areas will reflect the essence of Peruvian culture.